You're watching The Open Sketchbook, a show for anyone who wants to be a little more creative, produced by Rooster High. Welcome to Season 2. In Season 1, I posted the results of my own creative practice in the form of short audio fiction, and in Season 2, I'm interviewing successful creatives about their journeys. Welcome back, dear listener, to The Open Sketchbook, and today I have with us author Cass Morris. She wrote and is writing the Aven Cycle, a Roman-flavored historical fantasy, initially released by DAW Books, and the only book series to actually fascinate me in depth with fictional politics. That's 100% true. 3 out of the 4 books are out from Unseen Fire, Giveaway Tonight, which was released exactly on my 32nd birthday, I might add. And then The Bloodstained Shade, and she is one of the co-hosts of the Worldbuilding for Masochists podcast, a 5-time Hugo finalist in their category, which is, that's some brilliant inconsistency right there, alongside Marshall Ryan Maresca and Natanya Barron. She's had some of the coolest jobs at the intersection of literature and education. So, and is also an old friend of mine across our own little world building adventure. So Cass, it's lovely to have you on.
It's a delight to be here, Zach. I was so excited when you emailed me about this.
When I emailed Cass, dear listener, I initially, of course, said, hey, I want to talk about world building. Cass, of course, is, as we mentioned, on World Building for Masochists, a long-running podcast, a fantastic show, and has done plenty of that herself with the Aven Cycle. But what we're going to start off with today is the thread that you've probably been hearing come out of my various attempts at other topics with the other guests, right? We were just asking, okay, what does your creative process actually look like? So with regards to like getting the words out on a page, like what has worked for you? Is there like a discipline practice? Is it an environment? Is it a particular scent of candles that went out of stock and you had to buy a crate of? Like what's worked for you?
It's funny you said like there's no one right way, because that is true even within a person and from project to project. I work on a lot of different shapes of project. A novel, people understand what a novel is, and working on that is so much a matter of butt in chair, do the work. The words don't exist until you create them. They just don't. No one else can do that for you. You have to do it. And sometimes it's a grind and sometimes it's not. I like sprinting. This is something I'll do. It started off doing it during NaNoWriMo before it collapsed like a flan in a cupboard. But back in the day, I would do that. And the Twitter, before Twitter collapsed like a flan in a cupboard, they had a Nano Sprints account, and it was challenges, and they'd be like 15 minutes, here's a prompt, maybe it might be a word or a sentence or a bit of poetry or a picture, and it's like write as much as you can for 15 minutes, then we'll take a 5-minute break. Then it's a 20-minute one. It's very much like sort of the Pomodoro technique, which I'm only just starting to like actually learn about and implement in a more strategic way, which is I believe that's 25 and 5, I think. 25 on, 5 off. I think that's how it works out. But
so
for me, that
sprint
works.
And a rest, a sprint and a rest.
Yeah. Especially when I'm struggling to focus. Those help because it's like a set amount of time. It puts a little bit of like the right amount of pressure on me to focus up, to be like, here, get this done. It's not sustainable forever, but it is very much good for those times when I know I'm likely to be scattered if I don't do that to myself. But other shapes of project don't work the same way. My day job, I work for a company that produces mythology-themed summer camps, and it's a delightful job. It's so much fun. And throughout most of the year, we're developing the stories, the quests that the kids go on during the summer, and each week is a different story.
Cool.
It's so cool. I love
cool.
my job. I'm so lucky. But a quest is a very oddly shaped thing. It is difficult, unless you've seen one in action, to really understand what it is you're writing when you write one of these, because it's not a script. It's not exactly an outline. It's not exactly a lot of things. You need a story treatment, but you also need beats and challenges, but they're not directly narrative. you are creating, what we do is we create situations and scenarios with mythological characters from all kinds of different pantheons, but the goal is to put it in the kids' hands. It's a type of immersive entertainment, and writing that is such a different beast.
Does that involve running around camp and doing different things?
Yes.
Okay, so it's you're writing a romp is like the word that comes to mind. It's a romp.
It is. And the thing about immersive entertainment is that lots of people who are in this field, when they're working on something, they know they've got a space. It's a space they probably have control of. Even if it's just for a short time, they've rented it. They know what it looks like. They know what its dimensions are. And there's usually only one at a time. And they may expand and franchise, but they're developing in one at a time. We run in 16 different locations across the country. We work in public parks. We have no control over the environment. Each location has a different size of camp, which might be anywhere from like 12 to 240 campers, so participants. The cast size, the number of performers involved might be anything from 3 to 24. And so the things that we create have to be flexible enough, have to be modular enough that each individual quest guide on the ground at their location can take and assemble those pieces and create the shape that's going to be best for their location. And they know their kids, they know their park, they know what that running around looks like. Like the park that I do this at, I know things sort of have to work a certain way because the main path is a loop around a lake. And so I know I have to sort of work like in a circular fashion with the story.
Yeah.
It's going to be this many beats around the lake. And oh yeah, there's huge sightline problems across this water. And it's so much fun, but it's such an interesting challenge. And we are still developing how to do that. We change it a little bit every year. We will soon be doing our review of the past year and how it went and making our tweaks for the upcoming year. We're starting to get a really good system down. Our tweaks are getting smaller each year that we need to make excellent. To like the base product, the templates that we work with. But we're also like, I only write a couple of them each year myself. We have contributing writers who come in on a contract basis that write the others. And then my boss and I are the overview. We're sort of like running the writer's room. I do the editing on all of them to try to ensure consistency of formatting and things like that. It's just such a different shape. And that's just, those two things are an example. Like the novel and the quest, I have to prepare my mind differently for those things.
Yeah, the quest sounds like you are preparing a modular toolkit. And in collaboration, that is much more, the way you talk about it in Writer's Room feels very appropriate. It feels like the stories I've heard out of people writing for TV or show running for TV, because there are so many moving parts. And you can't just write, a wall of fire appears and moves across the street.
Play with fire
in your reboot of Frasier, like, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you have to have considerations for all the places that'll go. So there's, I find when I'm in a collaborative space like that, for me and how I'm wired, that's much easier because as somebody who both loves people, but also has in the past had a lot of people pleasing wrapped up in that, if I can just deliver a thing to a person and then that person happy and me safe because that person happy, that's easy for me to do. Right. But
gosh, Zach, I have no idea what that might feel like.
Not at all, I'm sure. Not at all, I'm sure. Because I know for me, like looking at the medium of writing, because I think I mentioned this on one other episode, I have somewhere to the tune of 40,000 words of a novel somewhere that I was writing before I met Megan, my now wife. And I knew with that was a Herculean effort because there was not somebody asking me for that, and there wasn't a grade I could go get from a teacher or an authority figure, right?
Yep.
It was sitting down, and yes, there was an audience in mind at the end, but really it was more for me of like a brute act of creation because it was so bottled up in me. I just wanted to express, right? So, What did it look like to get to the point where you had to figure out the sprints? Did you have a point where it was just tough to ever sit down and get going?
Yeah, definitely. And it's come and gone a few times in my life. Usually as I'm adjusting to either a new job or like a new set of conditions within a job, because my day jobs, I've been very fortunate that I've had day jobs I really like for the most part. They are also tend to be writing intensive jobs.
Yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse in some ways. Like when I was working at the Shakespeare Center, I was doing so much academic writing that after about like the first year and a half, I sort of looked around and I was like, I have not written anything creative in months. I couldn't remember the last time because I came home, my brain felt squeezed out, and I had to put myself back in the habit. And I started by saying like, all right, 100 words a day. You can do that. You can write 100 words a day after work, after dinner, something. And once I was doing that consistently, this was way back 2011 when I first started drafting From Unseen Fire, or the thing that would eventually become From Unseen Fire. Once I had 100 words at a time, I bumped it up. It's like, okay, now can you get in the habit of doing 200 words a day? Can you do 500? Can you do 1,000? And at that point, you start to get having a book. But the other thing I've learned about myself and the way I work is that is not sustainable indefinitely. That 1,000-word mark.
Yeah.
I go through periods where I can do that very, very well. And I go through periods where it's like, that is too much and I'm going to break my brain if I keep trying. And learning to be gentle with myself through those more fallow periods is an ongoing process. It's tough. When it's like I feel like I should be writing or I want to write, but once again, brain is just squeezed out. Having the creative job that I do now that I love, that is so much fun. Sometimes there's just nothing left at the end of the day.
It draws from the same well.
It does.
Yeah, it draws
and sometimes
from the
it's
same
just, it's like I'll sit down and it's like, nope, coming up empty today. And at that point, I usually try to find a way to refill. Like I'm learning, I am learning, I have learned, I am still learning what signals my brain and body are giving me that I will be better served by close the laptop, stop staring at it, stop trying to make it happen, go do something else. Go read a book, go draw something, go do a craft, go watch a movie, go play Mario Kart, do something else tonight, and then see if tomorrow you've got a little more juice. And that works. It's never consistent. Like it's never going to be totally consistent because it's so fluctuating with the patterns of my day job and then the patterns of just me, of where my energy and emotions are at any given point in time.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a good realistic picture for people to hear, because so often a lot of the questions and advice, and I remember some discussions around this while you were working at the Shakespeare Center. It was like, well, how do you get the creative work done and make it good and get it launched? And maybe that can become a full-time thing. For a lot of people, it's not. Even when, like,
So
and listener, I do not hype Cass up just because she's my friend. Yes, there is oomph in there because she is my friend. That's a good thing. But Cass's writing is very good. And so I'm sure there's a lot of there's a lot of like identity and legitimacy mindset to have around being an author and then saying, oh, well, this didn't take me full time.
Yeah, and it's funny how it changes once you have published something. Because suddenly there is an expectation out there.
Right.
And even if your deadlines are very loose, as mine with DAW books were, even if the deadline isn't a harsh one, you still know there's an expectation. Whether it's from your publisher, whether it's from readers. And it's, people talk about publish or perish in academia.
Right.
It's a thing in fiction writing too. It's less formal. You're not getting graded. You're not being put up for tenure. But you start to feel like you're falling behind if you're not putting out a book every year or every other year, which right now I haven't put out one since 2023. And
sure.
It's like, fortunately, I have other creative things that keep me, like the podcast, that keep me in the world, that keep me in people's minds, hopefully. But that's the terror that starts to creep in. If you're not producing consistently, It's like, oh no, I could lose.
And
It's taken me so much to claw to where I am, and I could slip.
and it goes back to like the environment of writing as well. I talked about, I couldn't remember the name of friggin' Walden of all things, Henry David Thoreau, on a previous one, but it's the mix of like, yes, he was a bit secluded and he didn't hide the fact that he was getting some help, but the vibe around the book that most people have is like, oh, he was alone, it was survivalist. It's like, no, his mom did his laundry. And it's like, so, and he mentioned he wasn't far from town, so he wasn't like creating a complete fiction.
Yeah.
But like his mom did his laundry and he would go get dinner with friends. And so it's more of the difference between the misconception and what was really happening. But it's still a good picture, even with that difference there, of like he had the resources, the situation, the stability to go to a cabin and just write. Because when I think about it that way, instead of like teasing one of the greats, you know, with quote unquote one of the greats, quote, and I still enjoy Walden very much. It's got some lovely prose in it, right? But as much as I like to tease it, it's like, actually, yeah, going to a cabin and then seeing my friends twice a week and my mom does my laundry, I would write so much.
Right. Nice work if you can get it, right? Like,
right?
But it's just, it is not, the publishing industry is not shaped like that.
No,
I don't know if it ever
absolutely
really
not.
was, but it's certainly not now. The mid-list is dwindling more than expanding.
Yes.
Almost every writer that you can think of either has a day job or has spouse or family who can support them. It's one of those two things. Almost none of us make enough from writing to live on. And people get this idea in their heads, and I blame Hollywood in a lot of ways, because I feel like screenwriters have no idea how the publishing industry works, for one thing. The way they portray it sometimes, I'm like, what? No. But they give this idea that like, oh, every author gets glamorous book tours and these fancy parties, and it's like, no. They didn't want to send me as far as Williamsburg. I had to fight for that. Like, I had to fight for them to send me from Richmond to Williamsburg.
Richmond, Virginia, by the way, dear listener. Richmond, Virginia.
It's about an hour. Like,
right.
And it was a town that I went to college in. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure the Barnes and Noble there would like to have me. Like, can we ask? Can we ask them? It's not going to cost you anything. Can we ask? So yeah, it's not glamorous. It's not a glamorous lifestyle overall.
Not at all. So it really, it comes down to the question of like, okay, if you're wanting to create more, if you're wanting to find the discipline, learn your own, and I've been on that journey as well with the business, learn your own, like recognizing where your own energy's at, your energy level, and what you're in the mood for, and not just mood in a casual way, but in a like, no, I cannot focus right now, and I need to rest, right? I need to recharge, because I will not be productive if I just sit here and smash the keyboard. Right. Trying to claim a creative discipline and figure it out. You also want to, at some point, keep in mind, okay, well, like, why am I doing this? Because if you're doing this because you saw an episode of TV where you're like, I want to be a writer, and that sounds awesome, that's probably not going to get you so far. But if you're writing because there's a story you want to tell, whether you feel like it's super profound, or you went to a random online book generator and you're like, and it was like, oh, Pokemon in space, I can do that, right? Like, and by the way, I have half a mind to go and just do that on a random thing and use that as my writing exercises, right? Just mash up
there are
two
worse
random
things you could do. That's fan fiction.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And fanfic is one of the things I do to remind myself that I enjoy writing. When I hit points where I'm like, I hate everything, I can't tell stories, I forget, I feel like I've forgotten how to do it.
Yeah.
The gear switch I'll throw is I will go write fan fiction.
I love it. That's great.
For pure, because fan fiction is an act of pure joy. You can't expect anything else out of it. And I've written fanfic since I was a kid. And so it's a place I go back to when I need to remember that I do in fact like doing this. And I do. I love telling stories. I love shaping characters. I love character dynamics. The interpersonal mixed with, as you mentioned, the political. Like, I love the questions of how we people decide to live in a society together.
Yes.
I like exploring all of that through the lens of fantasy. Something I'm fond of saying is that you can get away with a lot of things because people will accept certain truths if it's said by somebody in a wizard's hat. way more than they will if just a normal person tells them.
I believe everything Sempronius says in your books, by the way. That's a character.
You should.
I believe everything Sempronius says.
He's almost always right about things, and if he isn't, then Latona is.
That's
or
right.
Vivia is his sister. But it's because I want to tell stories. That I always have been. I was the kid who, my dollhouse, I had a notebook full of like their family trees and the things that happened in this dollhouse from the time, like little composition notebook.
Amazing.
It's intrinsic to who I am. I have always lived at the intersection of storytelling, performance, and education. I think those are three things I have always loved, and it's what has shaped my career and the various forms that creativity has taken within my career. And I've been very fortunate in that regard. Even if the book publishing has never been the part of my career that kept a roof over my head, or
right.
or kept my kitties in kibble.
Right.
But I do it because I love it.
Yeah.
And the other nice thing, like as I was saying, is that the process changes after you've been published, and there is this other pressure on you.
Yeah.
In a different way. You also become part of a community in a different way. At least you do if you're willing to. I know there are some writers who like want to view other writers as competition, or who just want to stay isolated. And I'm like, A, you're wrong, and B, you're boring. So
yeah. Yep.
Like one of the great, great joys of doing the World Building for Masochists podcast is how many writers I get to talk to.
Oh,
and just see their brains.
Such a good
and
community.
How they work.
Absolutely.
And being part, and it's not like, I'm not saying you can't be part of a community before you're published. There are certainly many ways to have a writing community before then. But having a community of other people who know what it feels like to get a royalty check for 63 cents, who know what it's like to either get the edit letter from your editor when you're not at all prepared for it, or to have been waiting 6 months for it, desperate for it, and she still hasn't, like, other people who know the particular trials and tribulations of being in the industry, it's really helpful. And they're also, for the most part, really amazing people. And so I also want to keep doing this, to keep being part of that community, because it's really fun and they're great people.
Dear listener, when Cass talks about enjoying writing the politics, it really comes through. Like, I can't emphasize enough that other books I'll just glaze over, or they'll just do it at a very entry level and just use basic concepts that we're familiar with, or, you know, what is it at the start of the prequels, like negotiating trade routes, I think, the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah, weird. How could, like, negotiating tariffs ever be a relevant story for people to think about? That's
well, it's right. It is relevant. I guess my reference there is that it's relatively surface level. Like you don't live in the politics with the characters. I'll say it that way.
No, we never learn anything about the goods and commodities that are being traded and why they're important to those people.
And the specific mechanics of interstellar trade in a place like Star Wars, where it's all hyperspace lanes, many light years apart. But in the Aven Cycle, there is a lot of discussion about things even going on in neighborhoods with like the colleges, and then like what's going on what streets. Right. And then and just like hearing about what's going on the streets, but like who has what kinds of power in those neighborhoods, and then how that informs who's going there to just like buddy up with them or figure out what they need, all of this sort of thing. It's just, it's really lovely, Cass. I'm not sure I've really gone ham to your face about how much I love it.
Well, thank you.
I think, Cass, a number of years ago, I posted on Instagram my every time the first editions of From Unseen Fire go under a certain price, I grab a few and I acquire a bit of a stack that I think you eventually saw on Instagram or Facebook, and you were like, wait, why does Zach have 8 copies of From Unseen Fire? Especially like the hardcover that's not in print anymore. I'm like, I give them away to my friends all the time.
That's
because
great.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. It also feels like a bit of a collector's item now.
Yeah. The original cover.
For sad reasons. But you know, my novelty is not worth it, but I have the novelty now.
You do.
Indeed. All right. So we'll shift a bit towards world building. So thank you for talking about the process. And it was fun to hear you talk about starting out with the 100, 200 words, right? Where it's like whatever it looks like for you to manage a consistent, you, dear listener, to manage a consistent creative habit that move towards your goal, whether it's, I just want to enjoy creating or, you know, I do want to write something that I'd love to get out there for people to enjoy or publish or whatever, you know, starting with the bite size, I think will help get you used to it, right? If that's a desire that you haven't realized yet.
It'll make you realize whether or not you truly want to make it a habit and make it something that you continue to do. Just starting off, rather than sitting down and saying, I'm going to write a novel now, is huge and can be really intimidating. But 100 words, anybody can write 100 words, right? And I go back to that. Like when I've had struggle periods and I've needed to get myself back into writing, or even just like this past month or so when it's my camp season and I'm exhausted and like falling asleep at 7:30 in the evening because I'm that tired.
Right.
I will go back to a thing and be like, okay, can you write literally anything? Can you put literally any of your brain into this today? And I think like I can I've got next to me on my desk, my bullet journal, which has all my writing things in it. It's like, there were days when it was like, yes, I wrote 12 words while sitting in my car on my lunch break.
Wow.
But it keeps me in the project. It keeps my head there. So like now that camp season's over, I'm ready to jump back in. I haven't like lost the momentum entirely.
Yes, I find that I do this with work projects all the time, working with podcasts and videos for companies, where I will have to start the outline of a thing and then I marinate on it. And when I come back to it, I'm 4 times as efficient as I would have been if I just tried to power through like all at once. You know, I have to sit and I have to marinate and something happens in my unconscious and then I can come and just produce, which is always fun. We'll talk a little bit about world building because I think it's technically illegal to have you on without doing that.
There's probably a statute somewhere.
Probably a precept of some sort. So what, generally speaking, why would somebody spend time building a world in which a story is going to happen? What purpose does that serve?
It gives you the authenticity of the space, which in turn is what gives your characters emotional veracity. I think that's sort of the chain, because like we are all products of our circumstances, right? We are products of our families, our educations, our socioeconomic class, our race, our gender, like all these things make us who we are. And that's true for your characters too. And I think, for me at least, finding their emotional reactions to things comes from knowing the world that they exist in and the world that has shaped them. And especially if you've got, you know, I tend to write multi-POV things. The thing I'm working on right now is only 2 points of view, and it's very strange for me. Because usually I'm like, cast of thousands, excellent.
Right.
But whether it's point of view characters or not, your world is going to have affected different characters in different ways. And showing that to a reader, showing how the world is kind and unkind to different kinds of people, showing how it gives advantages and throws obstacles up. And that's what, I don't know, that's where the juice comes from. That's where the interpersonal conflict comes from. That's where the classic of the plot, like the thing about a plot is a character has to need or want something. And for there to be a real story, there has to be something in their way. Yeah. And both the desire and the obstacles are functions of the world. And that to me is so much about, like, I think a lot about the difference between world building and lore, because I think some people conflate the terms.
Ooh, tell me about that.
So, like, the difference between the two, I think, is world building is the conditions as they exist. It's the things you see on a table when you walk in. It's the scent in the air. It's how people interact with their environment. Lore
it's what's in their trash and why, to go archaeology.
Yeah. Lore is the list of kings. Lore is the story of how these people became the people that they are. And a little of that's important. But too much of it can feel overwhelming, and you're like, okay, why do I need to care about this guy who died 2,000 years ago if he's not important to the plot now. Is it important that your reader know about each of these kings, or is it simply important that they know this is a nation that has had an unbroken line of kings?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is going to shape a society differently than a nation that has never had a king, that has always had representative government of some kind, or that has always had, priest rulers or something like that. Do we need to know exactly every detail of how that came to be and who the major figures are? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But giving the sense that that does exist, that there is a history in your world, that it does reach back, that things happen off screen, like off the sides of the page. One of the kindest reviews I ever got. I loved this review so much because it got it. It got it. The thing that the reviewer said was that Cass Morris knows what her characters are doing when they leave the page in the same way one knows where one's hand is in the dark. And I was like, that means I've nailed it. Yes, because I do. Like, you asked me what Vatinius Obeer does when he leaves this room. I may not have ever thought about it before, but because I have built my world sufficiently enough, I can come up with that answer quickly. Because I know my world and I know my characters, and for me, they grow together. And there's so many different ways to do world building. Some people will build the entire world before they start the plot. Some people start plot first and then have to backfill their world building. Both valid ways of going about it. I am very organic. For me, they grow together. I am building my dollhouse and making my dolls at the same time and finding out what happens with them. It's not a brief process. I can't say I recommend it. It's a lengthy process. Yeah. I have to explore a lot in the act of telling myself the story in the first place to figure out what the plot actually is, and not just, ooh, look at my interesting characters wandering into each other and having conversations. The first draft of From Unseen Fire, nothing happened. It was just conversations.
I remember you talking about the difference, because readers, and I fully recommend all of the books that are out, you mentioned a difference between the first one and the next two, just because your knowledge of pacing evolved. Yes. I will say, as somebody, I adore From Unseen Fire, and I adore all of them. From Unseen Fire might be my favorite, just because the way things very much happen in From Unseen Fire, but the way you got to sit with the characters, I felt like I was, and it wasn't that there wasn't any conflict. There was still plenty of conflict. The book starts with a bit of a change, to say the least, right? So there's still plenty of motion, but I felt like I was marinating with the characters while this grill was still on. I felt like I got to marinate with all of them. And then in the next two books, when all of a sudden I was angry that HBO hadn't picked it up yet after reading the next two books, it was like the pace was faster, not too fast, but much faster, which also gave really fun weight to some of the really fun reveals you have with your world building that happen out in the campaigns with the magic system and everything. That's all I'm going to say, because you need to go read it, because you did some stuff. That I was just absolutely fantastic in there.
I learned so much along the way, both, like you say, about pacing, about how to show the world, about the craft of doing your world building and using your world building in your book are two different things.
And because I was about to elucidate my previous point just because of that, because I got excited, dear listener. You heard me say, oh, she revealed something about the magic system. And it wasn't just Cass saying, oh, look, I'm smart. The magic system is cool. There was the plot of where the characters were, what they were doing, and then how the plot of the magic system interwove with that created moments that the characters had. Because when I was thinking about that moment, I gave the compliment. I was not thinking of like a flow chart that was all of a sudden very cool. I was literally picturing the characters doing what they were doing in the moment when something became clear about the world to them as they worked together. So like even in my memory,
I'm trying to guess which point it was.
You have a couple cool ones, but there's one point of discovery that we'll talk about obviously once we're done here. But for me, it was so tied to the characters, and there were stakes in the moment, and then there was a discovery, and and then things happened, and it was very satisfying. And I remember the characters talking about it and breaking it down and all that sort of thing, and what it meant to everybody involved as characters. So it wasn't just, oh, it's Cass, thought up the next burning metals in your mouth system that's super cool or whatever, right? It was like it was attached to the characters themselves and their goals. It was very so
they completely go together for me. But like I was saying, building it and using it are different parts, like not completely different skill sets, but certainly different tools in your toolbox. And it's possible to be really good at one and weak on the other in some ways. Learning continues to be part of the process. I hope I'm always learning. I hope From Unseen Fire is the worst book I ever published,
Sure.
Like
Sure.
That was my debut novel. I think it's really good. I think it's a very strong debut, frankly. I will fluff myself
agree.
up. I will fluff myself up. But I can see where I've gotten stronger in the craft of showing the world to and giving that marination while still keeping a little bit of a clippier pace. Yeah. I have gotten better at that with each book. I've had people tell me that The Bloodstained Shade feels faster than the first two books, even though it is a solid 20,000 words longer than book 2, which is in turn 20,000 words longer than book. Yeah, it is.
I had no idea they were that different in length.
They are.
I had
They're about,
no
it's
idea.
about 20,000 ish. What's it? From Unseen Fire is about 146, I think.
Okay.
Give Way to Night's about 164, 165 ish, and Bloodstained Shade is straight up 185. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a chonker. That one's chonker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But I had to get it all in.
Right. And I was delighted at the announcement of a book 4, of course.
Yes, it will exist someday.
To give it breathing room.
Someday.
Whenever that happens.
I need to write something else that someone will actually pay me for first, which is why I'm working on the different project. But
I see.
It's still there. Book 4. Every once in a while, I'll just open up the file and be like, yeah. I still know where this is going. I know exactly.
Right.
Well, I don't know exactly, but I know the broad strokes of what happens in book 4.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a discovery writer. A lot of it happens along the way, but I know the broad strokes. It will exist someday.
Where you talked about, you're building the world building and then integrating it into the plot of how it happens with the characters, you kind of build them together. How close does that process bring you to being able to get the right kind of payoff for both your characters and your plot? Like you said it right so much slower, but does that bring you closer to like, oh, this moment is easier to distill when Sopronius is here and then this is going to happen. It's connected to this web.
I think so. I think because I take my time on the front end, usually once I have finally got a full draft, and I edit a lot as I go. My current project, the folder of things I have tossed out is, I think, currently larger than the folder of the actual manuscript.
Wow.
Some of those scenes are sort of the same, and I've moved it so that I still have the original, but I can rewrite. But I do a lot of that along the way. It's a very loopy system where I have to sort of like, oh no, I've changed my mind about something. I need to go back and fix other things. But once I do finally get to a full final draft of it, or even just like a full first draft, it feels like it's the 5th draft at that point. And then that's usually when I need an outside eye. That's when I go to either my agent or the development editor that I used for Bloodstained Shade, who was amazing. Getting the outside eye, and I'll still know, I'm like, there's something that's not clicking, there's something that's not quite there, there's something that's not, the pieces aren't pulled together yet. And that person will usually point something out that I then realize connects to like 6 other things, and suddenly I've got a solution for 6 problems in one fix. And I do think a lot of that is because doing the work of the world building with the characters means those threads are there. After a certain point, I'm too close to it. I can't see how to pull them together until someone else goes, oh yeah, that's like that. She's a mirror for her character. And then it's like, zing. Like, oh, you're right. They are mirrors. They have this. And that, oh wait, knowing that just unlocked a gajillion things. So I'm a much faster editor than I am drafter.
Yeah.
Because by the time I get to that point in the process, the hardest work of telling myself the story is done, and then it is about refinement. It is about how do I make the most of the story that I have and the most of the characters that I have, and get, like you said, those points of payoff for each of the characters. It's because the work is there in the underbelly all along, and I spend so much time with it and with the characters as I'm building. I love the process because the moment when you do get that bing, here's the solution, it feels so good. It's such a rush to be like, I know how to do it now. I know how to make this book a book and not just scattered scenes. It's such like, I live for that feeling.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Cass, thank you so much for coming on and sharing about your process, and then also just about the, world building in general and how we can think about it for whatever the creative projects are. For anybody who hasn't found you online yet, where can they go hear World Building for Masochists, and where should they keep up with you?
World Building for Masochists is available on all major podcasting sites. You can also go straight to worldbuildingformasochists.podbean.com. I have a link tree. It's just Cass R. Morris. If you search Cass R. Morris anywhere, you're going to find me. There's only one other Cass Morris in the world that I know of. She's an interior decorator in California. So not that one, the other one. CassMorrisWrites.com is my main website. I am mostly these days on Blue Sky and Instagram for socials, and I'm Cass R. Morris or Cass Morris Writes at both those places.
Fantastic. Well, dear listener, as Felix says in From Unseen Fire, first book of the Aven Cycle, take me to Iberia with you, and you can count on me until you run out of numbers. Talk to you next time. In the description, you'll find a link to Reese Hopper's Creative Consistency Challenge, and if you have an interest in content marketing, you can sign up for my newsletter down there too. Now it's time for me to close my sketchbook, and for you to open yours.